10 years of tears ended with a single, heavy knock on the wooden door. The family was sitting in the quiet living room. They were ready to sign a tragic paper. It was the official death certificate for Leo, the oldest brother. Leo had disappeared in a terrible shipwreck 10 years ago. Everyone believed he was resting at the bottom of the cold ocean. Clara, his younger sister, held a black pen in her shaking hand. She was ready to say goodbye forever. Then, the loud knock echoed through the silent house. Mr. Vance, the old family lawyer, slowly opened the front door. He dropped his leather briefcase. His mouth fell wide open. Standing in the cold rain was a tall man. "Hello, little sister," the man said softly. Clara could not breathe. It was Leo. His face looked a little older. His clothes were wet and dirty. But his voice was exactly the same. It was the warm, gentle voice of her lost brother. Clara ran forward, but stopped. Was this a cruel trick? A ghost? The man smiled sadly. He slowly unbuttoned his wet shirt. He pulled the fabric down to show his left shoulder. There was a faded, white scar shaped like a crescent moon. It was the exact scar Leo got when he fell off his bicycle at age 7. Only the closest family members knew about this hidden mark. All of Clara's doubts completely vanished. She cried loudly and hugged him tightly. Her brother had finally come back from the dead. The whole room was filled with pure joy. Mr. Vance wiped tears from his old eyes. But down on the floor, someone was not happy at all. It was Buster, the family's old, loyal terrier dog. Buster had loved Leo more than anything in the world. Leo looked down and smiled brightly. "Hey, Buster. Come here, buddy," he called out cheerfully. He kneeled on the floor and reached out his hand. Everyone expected the old dog to bark happily, wag his tail, and jump into Leo's arms. But Buster did not move forward. The small dog took one slow step backward. He did not growl. He did not show his teeth. Instead, Buster turned his head away from Leo's hand. The dog opened his mouth and let out a very long, quiet yawn. Then, Buster quickly licked his own lips twice. He looked away, staring at the empty wall. Clara laughed softly, wiping her tears. "Oh, poor Buster is just too old and tired today," she said. Buster walked slowly to the corner of the room. He lay down on his dog bed, keeping his body very low to the ground. He refused to look at the man sitting on the sofa. The happy family celebrated all night long, completely blind to the silent warning. The next morning, the bright sun filled the huge mansion. Leo quickly became the center of the family again. He walked around the house, touching old paintings and smiling. He remembered everything. He told funny stories about his childhood that only the real Leo could possibly know. He even walked into the dark study room. He went straight to the old metal safe hidden behind the bookshelf. Without looking at any notes, he typed in the secret family code. The heavy metal door clicked open. Everyone was completely amazed. That evening, Clara organized a special welcome dinner. She invited Mr. Vance and a few close friends. The food was delicious and the wine was expensive. After dinner, Leo walked to the beautiful grand piano in the corner of the room. He sat down and placed his fingers gently on the white keys. He began to play a famous classical song. It was the exact same piece the real Leo used to play every Sunday. The music flowed perfectly. The rhythm was beautifully sad and deeply emotional. Mr. Vance took out a handkerchief and wiped his eyes. "It is truly a miracle," the old lawyer whispered to Clara. "He plays exactly like his father taught him. No one else can play with that much soul." Clara smiled, feeling incredibly lucky and completely safe. Before the guests left, Clara wanted to capture the happy moment. She took out her phone. "Leo, go hug Buster for a picture," she said cheerfully. Leo smiled and walked over to the old terrier. He picked the dog up and hugged him tightly for the camera. Clara took the photo. The party ended smoothly. Later that night, Clara lay in her bed. She opened her phone to look at the beautiful pictures from the dinner. She smiled at the photo of Leo and Buster. But then, she noticed something a little strange. She used her fingers to zoom in closely on Buster's face. The dog was not looking at the camera. He was looking sideways at Leo. Buster's eyes were opened incredibly wide. Clara could clearly see the white part of the dog's eyes. It looked very unnatural. Clara zoomed in more. She noticed Buster's body. The dog was not relaxed at all. His muscles were tight and hard. His ears were pulled flat against his head. He looked exactly like a frozen statue. This was not a picture of a happy, loved pet. Clara felt a sudden, cold chill run down her back. She stared at the small screen for a very long time. Why did Buster look so terrified in the arms of his best friend? The perfect illusion in the house suddenly felt very fragile. Clara could not sleep. She got out of bed and opened her laptop. She searched the internet for dog behavior. She typed in the strange things Buster was doing, yawning, lip-licking, and showing the whites of his eyes. She clicked on an article written by a famous animal expert. The title of the article made her heart beat faster. It was called Calming Signals: How Dogs Show Extreme Fear. Clara read the words carefully. Dogs do not always bite or growl when they are afraid. Sometimes they use silent signals to avoid danger. Yawning when not tired, licking lips constantly, and showing whale eyes are signs of intense stress. The dog is silently begging the scary person to leave them alone. Clara covered her mouth in shock. Buster was not tired. Buster was completely terrified of her brother. But why? Clara needed to test this crazy theory. The next afternoon, a delivery man brought a large package to the front door. The man was a complete stranger. Buster immediately ran to the door. The old dog barked loudly and confidently to protect his home. Buster acted like a normal, brave dog with the stranger. But when Leo walked into the hallway to get the package, Buster stopped barking immediately. The dog lowered his head, walked backward, and hid under the stairs. He licked his lips again, shaking slightly. Clara watched from the kitchen. The terrible truth was forming in her mind. A dog's nose never lies. Buster could smell the core scent of a person. The dog knew the man in the hallway did not smell like his beloved owner. Clara decided to watch Leo very closely. She paid attention to every small detail. Later that day, she watched Leo walk down the long wooden hallway. She listened to the sound of his heavy leather shoes hitting the floor. Tap, thump, tap, thump. She remembered something very important. Her real brother, Leo, was left-handed. He always put his heavy weight on his left foot when he walked. But the man in the hallway was putting all his weight on his right foot. His walking rhythm was completely backward. Clara felt sick to her stomach. The face was Leo's. The memories were Leo's. but the core scent and the deep physical habits belonged to a stranger. The smart terrier had noticed the wrong rhythm from the very first day. Clara quietly closed her bedroom door. She picked up her phone and dialed the number for Mr. Vance. Her hands were shaking violently. The man sleeping in the guest room was not her brother. He was a perfect, dangerous fake. Clara met Mr. Vance secretly at a quiet coffee shop. She showed him the photos of Buster's terrified eyes. She explained the dog's calming signals and the wrong walking rhythm. Mr. Vance listened carefully. His old face turned very serious. He promised to help her test the man. The next morning, Mr. Vance visited the mansion. He brought his heavy briefcase. Leo smiled brightly, expecting to sign the final papers to receive the huge family fortune. But Mr. Vance shook his head slowly. "I am sorry, Leo. There is a legal delay," the lawyer lied smoothly. "The bank needs 2 more weeks to process the death certificate reversal," Mr. Vance explained. Suddenly, the friendly smile completely vanished from Leo's face. His eyes became dark and cold. The gentle artist suddenly looked like a very dangerous, angry man. 2 weeks? I cannot wait 2 weeks. Leo shouted loudly. He hit the wooden table with his fist. Clara jumped in surprise. The real Leo never raised his voice. He was always calm and patient. The fake man quickly realized his mistake and changed his face. He suddenly looked very sad and desperate. "Clara, please," he said, pretending to cry. "I did not want to tell you. I have a terrible, rare disease from my time on the island. I need $1 million for a special surgery in Europe immediately, or I will die." He used pity to trap her. He begged her to give him a cash advance today. Clara felt sick, but she acted worried. "Oh, Leo, that is terrible. We will try our best," she lied. Mr. Vance watched the man closely. The lawyer had prepared one final test. Mr. Vance stood up to pour a cup of hot tea. He walked closely past Leo's chair. Suddenly, Mr. Vance pretended to trip. He dropped the heavy ceramic cup. Boiling hot water splashed directly toward Leo's legs. It happened in a split second. The reaction was incredibly fast. Leo did not just jump back. He lifted his right leg and kicked the falling cup away with perfect, sharp martial arts technique. The cup smashed against the far wall. Leo stood balanced, ready to fight an invisible enemy. The room was dead silent. Mr. Vance looked at Clara. The real Leo was a gentle piano player. He hated sports and never took a single fighting class. The incredible reflex they just saw belonged to a highly trained street fighter. Leo slowly lowered his leg, realizing he had just exposed his true nature. Reflexes from surviving in the wild, he lied quickly, but his voice was shaking. Mr. Vance nodded slowly, but he knew the terrifying truth. They were locked in a house with a dangerous criminal. Mr. Vance whispered to Clara before he left the house. "We cannot go to the police yet. We have no solid proof. A martial arts kick and a scared dog are not enough. We need his DNA. Get me a hair or a used toothbrush immediately." Clara nodded nervously. She waited until Leo went out to the garden. She quietly opened the door to his private bathroom. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. She walked to the sink, looking for a toothbrush or a razor. She needed just one tiny piece of evidence. She looked in the cup by the sink. The toothbrush looked completely brand new. She picked it up and smelled it. It smelled strongly of chemical bleach. She checked the razor. It was also soaking in a small cup of cleaning liquid. Clara opened the trash can. It was completely empty and washed clean. She checked the hairbrush. Not a single hair was left on it. The man was incredibly smart and deeply paranoid. He was cleaning his biological trace every single day to leave absolutely nothing behind. He knew he was playing a dangerous game. Clara felt a cold sweat on her forehead. The fake Leo was a professional. She quietly left the bathroom, feeling completely defeated. She had no way to prove the terrifying truth to the world. That afternoon, Clara sat sadly in the dark garage. Buster walked over and sat next to her. The old dog rested his head on her knee. Clara stroked his rough fur, crying softly. "I don't know what to do, Buster. He is too smart," she whispered. Suddenly, Buster lifted his nose. The dog smelled something interesting. He walked toward a stack of heavy, sealed garbage bags in the corner of the garage. These bags were waiting to be taken to the city dump. Buster started scratching at one of the thick black bags. "No, Buster, stop that," Clara said tiredly. But the dog did not stop. He bit the plastic bag and tore a large hole in it. Clara walked over to pull him away. But then, she saw what the dog was trying to find inside the dirty trash. It was an old, white dress shirt. Leo had thrown it away 2 days ago. Clara carefully pulled the shirt out of the trash bag. She looked closely at the white collar. Right near the top button, there was a tiny, faded red spot. It was a single drop of dried blood. The fake Leo had accidentally cut his neck while shaving. He had thrown the shirt away, thinking it was perfectly hidden in the garbage. Buster's incredible nose had found the impossible evidence. Clara smiled, holding the key to his destruction. Clara put the dirty white shirt in a clear plastic bag. She gave it to Mr. Vance in secret that afternoon. The old lawyer sent the blood to a private medical laboratory immediately. They paid extra money for the fastest DNA test possible. Now they had to wait. 3 days passed incredibly slowly. The fake Leo continued his perfect act. He played beautiful music on the piano. He smiled warmly at everyone. Clara felt sick to her stomach every time he looked at her. She tried to hide her fear behind a fake, happy smile. Finally, on Friday morning, Mr. Vance called her phone. "I have the official lab results," he said in a very quiet voice. Clara drove to his office immediately. Her hands were sweating on the steering wheel. She walked quickly into his dark, quiet office room. Mr. Vance looked incredibly tired and old today. He slowly pushed a white paper across his wooden desk. "Read the results," he whispered. Clara picked up the heavy paper with shaking hands. She looked at the bold black letters printed at the top of the page. The DNA from the blood drop was a confirmed match. The paper clearly stated the man shared deep family bloodlines with Clara. Clara dropped the paper on the desk. She started to cry in pure defeat. She was wrong. The man really was her family. "He is my brother," Clara cried softly. "I was crazy. I suspected my own sweet brother because of an old dog. I am a terrible sister." She put her face in her hands, feeling deep guilt. She stood up to go home and apologize to Leo immediately. "Sit down right now, Clara," Mr. Vance commanded sharply. He picked up the paper and pointed his metal pen at the small text at the very bottom. "You did not read the whole document. The blood is family, yes. but it does not match a sibling relationship. Clara stopped crying. She looked closely at the tiny words. The DNA belonged to a distant cousin, not a brother. Mr. Vance opened a thick, dusty family history book on his desk. He turned the pages and pointed to an old, faded photograph of a young man. "Do you remember your distant cousin, Julian?" Mr. Vance asked darkly. "He was kicked out of the family 15 years ago for stealing money. He was always a dangerous criminal." Clara stared at the photo. Julian had the exact same height and body shape as Leo. Julian had massive plastic surgery, Mr. Vance explained coldly. He completely changed his face, his voice, and his hair. He studied Leo's life to steal your entire family fortune. We are living with a master criminal. Clara felt completely terrified. The perfect brother was actually a perfect nightmare. Clara and Mr. Vance drove back to the huge mansion together. They parked the car quietly in the driveway. "We will go into the study room," Mr. Vance whispered. "We will lock the door and call the police immediately. Do not talk to him." They walked into the quiet house. They hurried into the dark study room and locked the heavy wooden door. Mr. Vance picked up the telephone on the desk to call the police. Suddenly, a cold, dark voice spoke from the corner of the room. "I would not do that, old man," the voice said. Clara screamed and turned around. The fake Leo stepped out of the dark shadows. He was holding a large, black gun. He aimed the weapon directly at Mr. Vance's chest. He had heard everything. His gentle, friendly smile was completely gone. His face looked evil and crazy. "You are very smart, Clara," Julian laughed cruelly. "But you are too late. The money is mine." Clara stared at the gun, her whole body shaking with intense fear. "You killed my brother!" Clara cried out, tears falling down her face. "You killed him to take his place." Julian laughed even louder. The sound was terrifying. "Killed him? Oh no, sweet Clara. That would be a complete waste of a very valuable teacher." Julian stepped closer into the light. "Leo did not die in that shipwreck 10 years ago. I found him on the beach. I locked him in a dark, dirty basement for a whole decade. I tortured him every single day to learn all his secrets." Clara felt her heart stop completely. Leo was alive. Her beautiful, gentle brother had been living in a dark hell for 10 years. Julian forced Leo to teach him the piano, the memories, and the secret safe code. Julian had stolen Leo's entire life piece by piece. "I need the money from the safe right now," Julian yelled, pointing the gun at Clara's head. "Open the safe, old man." Mr. Vance stood strongly. "Why the hurry, Julian? You played the perfect game." Julian looked nervously at the dark window. "Because the men who paid for my expensive plastic surgery are outside," Julian said, sweating heavily. "They're a dangerous criminal gang. I owe them $2 million today. If I do not pay them right now, they will burn this entire house down with us inside." Clara looked out the window. Hidden in the dark trees around the mansion, she saw several black cars waiting silently. The gang was surrounding the house. Julian was a trapped rat, and he was ready to kill anyone to escape his deadly debt. Suddenly, all the lights in the mansion went completely dark. The room was black. The criminal gang outside had cut the main power lines. Julian panicked. He grabbed Clara roughly by the arm and pulled her against his chest. He pushed the cold gun against her head. "Open the safe right now or she dies." Julian screamed in the dark. He turned on a small flashlight. He pointed the bright light at Mr. Vance. The old lawyer breathed heavily. He slowly walked toward the hidden metal safe behind the tall bookshelf. Mr. Vance's hands were shaking as he touched the metal dial. He turned the lock left, then right. He remembered the secret family code perfectly. Click. The heavy metal door slowly swung open. Julian smiled greedily, pushing Clara forward to look inside the safe. Julian expected to see millions of dollars in shiny family diamonds and gold. But the safe was completely empty. There was no money. There was only a small, blinking red device sitting on the metal shelf. Julian stared at it in pure confusion and extreme anger. What is this? Where is the money? Julian yelled furiously. Mr. Vance stepped back bravely. That is a silent police alarm, the lawyer said calmly. I activated it the moment I received your DNA test results. The police are already on their way here, Julian. Julian roared with crazy, wild anger. He had lost everything. The gang was outside, and the police were coming. He raised his gun, pointing it straight at Mr. Vance's heart. He was going to kill the old lawyer for ruining his perfect, evil plan. Clara closed her eyes and screamed. But the loud gunshot never happened. Instead, a fast, dark shadow flew across the room. It was Buster. The old terrier had been hiding under the desk, terrified of Julian. But seeing his family in danger changed the brave dog completely. Buster did not yawn or show his white eyes. He attacked with pure, wild fury. He jumped and bit his sharp teeth deep into Julian's right leg. It was the exact leg Julian used to balance his heavy weight. The sudden, terrible pain made Julian scream loudly. Julian lost his balance and fell hard onto the wooden floor. The gun flew out of his hand and slid under the sofa. Buster held onto the leg tightly, growling aggressively. The small, old dog had saved Mr. Vance's life by attacking the fake heir's weakest physical point. Julian kicked the brave dog violently with his other foot. Buster yelped in pain and hit the wall. Julian quickly stood up, his leg bleeding badly. He heard the loud sound of police sirens approaching the mansion. His time was completely up. He had to run immediately. The loud police sirens echoed through the dark night. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Julian limped heavily toward the door. He ran down the long hallway toward the kitchen. Clara quickly picked up the hurt, brave dog in her arms and ran after him. Julian opened a hidden door in the kitchen floor. It led down to the old, dusty wine cellar. At the very back of the cellar, there was a secret underground tunnel. It was built many years ago to escape dangerous fires. Julian planned to use it now. Clara ran down the dark stairs, carrying Buster. She saw Julian standing by the heavy metal door of the tunnel. He was trying to push it open. His leg was bleeding, and he was completely desperate. He finally pulled the heavy door open and stepped inside. Julian tried to pull the heavy metal door shut behind him. If he locked it, no one could follow him. He would disappear into the night forever. But as the door began to close, Buster suddenly jumped out of Clara's arms with surprising speed. The brave terrier threw his small body directly into the narrow space between the door and the wall. The heavy metal hit the dog's side, but Buster refused to move. He blocked the door from closing. He showed his sharp teeth and barked with pure, aggressive anger. There were no more calming signals. There was no fear in his eyes. Buster was fiercely protecting his pack. He snapped his teeth at Julian's hands, forcing the criminal to step back. Julian cursed loudly, unable to close the heavy metal door to escape. Suddenly, 5 armed police officers rushed down the cellar stairs with bright flashlights. They pointed their guns directly at Julian. "Drop to the floor right now," the captain shouted loudly. Julian looked at the angry dog and the guns. He slowly fell to his knees in defeat. The police quickly put heavy metal handcuffs on Julian's wrists. They searched his expensive pockets for weapons. A police officer pulled out a rusty iron key and a crumpled piece of white paper. He handed the paper to the police captain to read carefully. "It is a rental receipt," the captain said, shining his light on the paper. "For an old, abandoned warehouse on the dark edge of the city." Clara gasped loudly. Her heart beat very fast. That dirty warehouse had to be the secret prison. "My brother is there," Clara cried to the police captain. "He has been locked in that warehouse for 10 years. We have to go save him right now." The captain nodded quickly. He ordered his men to drive their fast cars to the abandoned warehouse immediately. The police cars drove extremely fast through the empty city streets. They reached the old, dark warehouse near the edge of the dark forest. The building looked completely ruined and abandoned. The police broke the heavy lock on the front door and rushed inside with bright lights. Clara waited outside, holding Buster tightly. Her whole body was shaking. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers walked out of the building. They were gently supporting a man between them. The man was walking very slowly. The bright lights hit his face. Clara stopped breathing entirely. The man looked nothing like the perfect, handsome brother in her happy memories. He was terribly thin, like a walking skeleton. His hair was long, gray, and dirty. His face was covered in deep, ugly scars from years of cruel torture. He looked old and completely broken. Clara froze. The terrible fear returned to her heart. What if this was another trick? What if Julian had lied again? Julian had looked exactly like her brother, but he was a fake. This man looked like a complete stranger. She was too afraid to step forward. The broken man looked at Clara with sad, tired eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak and rough. He could not make a sound. Clara stepped back slowly, protecting herself from another lie. The police officers looked confused and sad for the poor man. Suddenly, Buster wiggled out of Clara's arms and dropped to the ground. The old dog limped forward on his hurt leg. He walked slowly toward the dirty, broken man. The police tried to stop the dog, but the man gently raised his shaking hand to stop them. Buster did not yawn. He did not show the white parts of his terrified eyes. The dog walked right up to the man's dirty shoes. He took a long, deep breath. He smelled the dirt, the pain, and the blood. But underneath it all, he smelled something perfect. Buster threw his head back and let out a long, beautiful howl. It was a sound of pure, overwhelming joy. The dog wagged his tail wildly and jumped up, licking the man's scarred, dirty face. He cried happy dog tears, welcoming his true master back to the world. The core scent of the human soul never changes. The outside was ruined, but the inside was perfectly true. Buster's loving reaction broke the invisible wall of fear. Clara cried loudly and ran forward. She threw her arms around the broken man's thin neck, holding him incredibly tight. Leo, I am so sorry. Welcome home, Clara sobbed into his dirty shirt. The man smiled weakly and hugged his sister and his brave, loyal dog. The nightmare was finally over. The fake heir was in prison, and the real, beautiful soul of the family was finally safe.